Get rid of the roots. Let's talk about it.
Let's do it. We are already kind of Welcome to Two Homers and a Realist. This is going to be a very angry podcast. The Sooners get absolutely obliterated by the arch rival Texas Longhorns, 49-0.
Our true rival.
The true rival, I guess so. I don't know. After today, it doesn't feel like we're much of a rival to them. This was just pretty epically horrific. It was so bad. If you sense the anger in my voice, it's because it's very real. I am extremely frustrated. I'm embarrassed. I'm worried for the future of the program. Things look really, really grim from my perspective. It is the first time in program history we've lost by 30 points or more 2 games in a row. Let that sink in. The first time in the history of this program we've had back-to-back losses of 30 points or more.
Team 128.
Team 128.
So they've had 128 times that they've had available.
More than that. That's 128 teams.
Yeah.
There's been lots of two combinations out of that.
We've had some really bad teams.
Out of the 1,000 games we played, do all the back-to-back combinations. That's quite a few, and we've never done it. So I'm Steve.
Lucas.
I'm Connor.
Ava.
So Ava's joining us again. You may remember her from the pod after Nebraska when we were quite happy. And she wanted to be on that pod because we were really happy. And now she's here because we're quite frustrated and sad.
Yeah, 2 opposite ends of the spectrum.
So I was at the game today. It was my 39th OU Texas game, my 40th actual OU Texas matchup. It was my 39th in the Cotton Bowl, but in the regular season rivalry. I've attended 38% of all OU Texas matchups, and this was by far the worst one, I feel like, from a standpoint of just utter humiliation. There have been ones that hurt more, but this one just feels different in that regard. Ava's been to quite a few, and she was at the game today. Connor was at the game today. He's been to quite a few.
I've been to 13.
Lucas was smart, didn't
11.
come.
Yep.
He stayed home, mowed the grass. I don't know what he
Some
did.
brains. It was easier to cry in the dark alone than in a stadium full of Texas fans.
I would say that it's funny. This
I
was
respect
not
that.
one that bothered me being in front of Texas fans, and it was so humiliating that they weren't even.
They weren't even mean.
They were not insufferable.
No.
There were
I had
just
one
a few
kid say
obnoxious,
something to me, that was
but
it.
they were not insufferable. They were so astonished. They were actually kind of nice and a little bit, I don't know, sympathetic.
They felt sorry for us.
They
Everyone
felt sorry for
was
us.
confused.
And confused, extremely confused, and felt very sorry for us. It's just a frustrated place to be. So I've got a lot of notes here, a lot of things I want to talk about. Let me start with a question. How far have we fallen?
Relative to what?
Got to be close to rock bottom
Relative to
per expectations.
per expectations, per
From the Nebraska
What
game. That's a good benchmark.
there's a lot of ways you could benchmark it. You could say from where the program should be, from where we were 6 years ago, from where we were 3 years ago or 4 years ago.
Last year.
Where we were even last year, but let's say from Nebraska. How far have we fallen in 3 games?
Well, I mean, 2 weeks ago we were in the top 6 in the country.
How crazy is that?
2 weeks ago.
No.
And
we're
looked
3 and
good. Looked really good.
Yeah.
Looked legit. Looked like all of us giving Brett McMurphy and all these other morons a hard time, Manziel, or whatever his name is. It looked like we had a point.
And now
We were
look
getting
like
vindicated,
the worst team in
and
the
now
Big 12.
they're getting vindicated,
Yep.
which is pathetic.
Yes.
So Jay sent and shared, he was not here with us, obviously. I'm not going to comment on that. But he did share something in our private text stream that was actually a post on Crimson Corner. I'm not going to detail it all, but just to say, somebody went back and did the look back at the 2018, 19, 20, and 21 classes to see how many kids from those classes are still at OU, and it is an astonishingly low number. And this weekend, my brother Mike, he pointed this out, remembering, I guess it was this morning, before the game, he was talking about how in the 2005 class, I think it was, how few kids were still on, like 2 kids were still in the program from the first class that we had signed, or one of those classes, or maybe it was, I don't remember. It was the one with the guy who fell out of the truck, the quarterback.
Brent Rawls.
Brent Rawls. So how bad that was and how you can't go a class that you miss on that many guys and they're not in the program. And so in this post, it's detailing just how few guys, 5, 10, 14, and 10 out of 16 in the 21 class. 16 is a pathetic number. How few guys are still here. So caveat all of this with the fact that we are obviously down in talent in a way that substantiates what I was saying on the midweek pod, I think. It substantiates what a lot of a concern we've had with everything that's happened. All that aside, today was in my mind, 80% coaching downfall.
I would say I would be dramatic and maybe even go to 90 after what I saw. After what we saw going into the second drive of the game, where we have, and again, maybe just to backtrack for a second, what you just said, our depth may be just that bad, obviously, like on both sides of the ball. I don't want to think it is, and we'll get into the whole freshman concept and all of that here in a bit, but I would say 90% of what we saw today, you had 6 days to prepare for this game. 6 days. And what you put on the field is what you
6 days knowing your quarterback was
not going to play.
Or likely not. We'll get into that in a minute, too.
So, and this is what you're going to consider the most viable product to go and beat Texas? Come on. I mean, it's crazy to me. So I would up your number up 10% and say it's about 90-10.
What do you think, Lucas?
I'm going to have to go 70-30 coaching because I felt like the players had a lot of give up in them, especially early in the second half even. It might have been right before halftime when Gray threw the interception on the Wildcat play. It just looked like that dashed all of our hopes. Texas comes back in, change of possession, goes right down the field, scores a touchdown before half. We had plenty of third down that we could have stopped them, and the defense didn't look like they were giving it their all at that point because they were just deflated. But I got to give the coaches a little bit of credit for installing the Wildcat because as bad as Davis Bevel looks to be, they didn't put him – he's not in a position to win, even with the week of practice, because I don't think he has the mentality to sling it. And when he gets the opportunity, he's still not trying to fit balls into windows and he's taking sacks. But putting in the Wildcat at least gave us a chance to throw Texas off, and it worked going up to about the 30-yard line.
What we saw against K-State.
And then it failed from there on in.
Yeah.
But they also there's multiple things they could have done out of the Wildcat. Braden Willis was a high school quarterback. He threw a touchdown pass 3 weeks ago, or however long it was.
Against Nebraska.
Against Nebraska. It was against Nebraska. So not that he's going to throw it 20 times during this game, but he could have thrown it 5 times out of the Wildcat, and you would feel better about it than the smallest running back on the squad doing a pop pass.
Oh, yeah.
When he can't even see over the offensive line.
Get very specific into that. Okay. I'm glad you bring that up. I'm glad you bring the Wildcat up.
Yeah, the Wildcat, at least the coaches tried to do something. We talked about on the last pod about, the little fake thing that they ran with Kennedy Brooks last year, where he'd take the snap, fake it to Caleb and run. And they installed that just for Texas, and we only ran it against Texas.
But we didn't commit to the Wildcat, though. We did not commit to it.
We got a lot to say about
why is Davis Bevel playing wide receiver?
Oh, we got a lot to say.
Okay. But then on the defensive end, it was complete disaster the entire game. But in the second half, this looked like nobody had any heart.
They're on the field the whole game, though. Like they're like the offense is not giving them any sort of break. Which I'm not trying to bail them out. Yeah, the defense looked really not good.
Yeah, we're not going to split hairs between 70-30, 90-10. But I think we're all dancing around the same issue. Ava, any thoughts on that? Between coaching and player? You're a college student. You go to OU. You are close to these players, obviously in age. You're a little more athletic than some of what we saw today. I think you could have helped out there on the field.
She could have batted a passer too.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I agree a lot of it. I mean, most of it, if not the majority of it, is all coaching. I mean, yes, we did do the Wildcat, but we'd get to the 30-yard line and then bring Bevel back in. And I mean, at some point, what doesn't work. And try something else. Why not? You're down 35 points.
Well, I want to be as structured as we can because Lucas brought up several points that were in my notes, which is telling because Connor and I talk about this all day during the game, all day on the ride home. You were just a part of a few text messages, but obviously you're seeing the same thing that we're seeing. So,
And I didn't even have the end zone view.
and you didn't even have the end zone.
If I would have
view.
had the end zone view,
Then you'd really know
I'd
the
have
answers.
even better.
As an end zone analyst, you
better
would know what
analysts,
to
yeah.
do. So I want to start with, boy, I don't know where I want to start because I'm so frustrated.
So many things.
All right, I want to start chronologically. So
We won the toss.
No, before
I
that.
want to start
and deferred.
before that.
Okay.
Okay. I like the idea. I'm fine with the idea of gimmicks when gimmicks work. And I'm not afraid of being accused of being gimmicky. I don't like the idea that cutesy little things are what can win football games. And I don't like the idea that a deception outside of the field of play is something that's going to win you a football game. What in the hell were we doing this week, and especially in the pregame with Dylan Gabriel? That was nonsense.
He's wearing pads
And a
and
helmet.
taking
He
reps with the
completely
ones.
suited up and took great snaps with the ones throughout the entire opening sequence. Do we think Texas was figuring out their game plan for us there on the spot? Did we think that was going to strike fear in their hearts and they were going to rip all their stuff up and throw it away and go back to a Dylan Gabriel setup and not realize he wasn't on the field? None of that made sense, and it was a distraction, and it robbed us of precious time to actually do something real.
And it also underhands the confidence that Bevel should have in himself before the game to say, I am the guy
man.
today.
I am the man."
guy today.
He
and
knew
I'm
he was
gonna go
starting.
win." Yeah, well,
But someone else is standing there taking his snaps and warm-ups.
As if we need that, as if we need that little deceptive play. I think it was just rinky-dink and stupid. I don't understand why you would waste your time, and it's a substitute for things you could have been doing that were constructive towards figuring out how to win a football game. Why you would waste your time with any of that. If I were one of the guys who had to help him suit up, I'd be frustrated by it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the trainers, one of the help staff.
Well, like the picture that this is kind of, I don't know, the picture they posted on Instagram showing the jerseys was Dylan Gabriel's jersey.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. And they
Really?
and they
Yeah.
and they tweeted out during the week, I see a certain number 8.
See, number 8 in pads, they tweet out the picture yesterday of him getting on the bus all with a formal suit on, not
Right.
suited up. But it's just, again, like you say, if I'm not scared of being accused of being gimmicky, but if a gimmick is not going to work, don't play it. Like,
Why would we expect that would work? That's what frustrates
You've
and scares me.
you got to have smart
Why
people
would they
in
think
the staff.
that matters?
You got to have smart people in that staff to be able to say,
Are we
don't
wrong? Do
need
you have a
this,
different
guys."
view?
It doesn't bother me, honestly. I don't think it made a big difference one way or the other. I don't think the pregame warm-up with Bevel coming in and doing a couple throws against air is what they do before the games. I've never given two shits about the beginning of.
Well, apparently it
When they
matters
take the
because every
field and they
football
warm
team
up.
does it.
I don't.
And so-
I think it's just to get loose. I don't
Well-
think it has any indication of how well you're going to play that day based on the quarterback handling a snap and throwing it to a wide open receiver with the defense not doing anything in the pregame warm-ups.
All of that said, name me one football team who lets their second string quarterback warm up with the first string. Or lets the guy not going to play for sure line up and run those warm-up plays with the first string. Something about the rhythm, it just doesn't make sense. It must matter because everyone always does it a certain way. They're very methodical in how they do all of their warm-ups. To me, that has to matter. I'm not saying it lost us a football game and caused us to lose 49-0, but it sure as hell didn't contribute to victory in any way.
Well, for Brent Venables to preach this new culture and this new way of doing things, to go out there and run an act just before arguably your biggest game on the schedule at this
Definitely
point.
the biggest.
I mean, come on, man.
Well, that frustrates me, and then let's get into the actual gameplay. And you talked about this, Lucas. So there's a couple of different things to hit on. One, is Devin Bevel the
Davis.
only option?
Devin Davis.
I mean, yeah.
Davis.
David, what?
Davis Bevel.
Davis Bevel.
DB, not
I've had
DB.
I've been up a long time. I didn't get a lot of sleep, and I've had a lot to drink. Is DB the only option? And I don't mean to knock the kid, but he clearly was not a good quarterback today. he has not been a good quarterback all day. We've got 3 other guys on scholarship that have quarterback in their title.
So what did Mike say? Remember when you were talking to him, what did he say?
So he said, for some reason, we have to be thinking that the third-string quarterback from Pitt is better than your 5-star recruit, because he played basically the entire game without giving the 5-star recruit a chance at the game until he came up in just mop-up minutes that were ridiculous. You've got 2 other guys who are quarterbacks who you recruited one of them to come to your program this past fall or spring. He's not good enough to see the field for some reason. Something there doesn't make sense. When he came back out onto the field in that second quarter, deep into that second quarter, that's when we started to really lose it.
Even halftime.
And
After
then after halftime, it really astonished
Especially when
me.
you don't score before half, you give up
another touchdown.
He throws an interception. At what point do you try something different?
I thought it was 2 problems. One is its stubbornness. And we were talking at the game, Mike pointed out, as a business, you got to take a business perspective to things and be very rational about when you make decisions and when you cut bait and change your mind and adapt. The very famous saying, Mike Tyson had a way of saying it, the best plans don't survive first contact with the enemy. Mike Tyson used to say, everybody's got a plan until that first punch. And when you engage in the actual game and it's not working, you have to recognize that and change direction. And we never even hinted at changing direction. And then they waited so long that it was going to be an insult and very difficult to change direction, doubly so. One, it's an insult to the guys you didn't play when the game was still in doubt. And then doubly, it is, if they do well, you're going to look really bad as a coach because obviously you should have been playing someone else. So that is all the more reason to do something early, because if you wait too long, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
I think when they got to the point of going into the fourth quarter, they didn't want a quarterback controversy by putting in a Nick Evers or Booty, let's say, and them come in and lead us on a drive to score points, because then there would be the same situation as we had last year with Rattler not playing well and the crowd started yelling for Caleb. And
I give him no grace on that.
All the controversy. Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
All the controversy that it caused within the staff, and then they end up playing Caleb.
So we're on the same page there.
For them to not try something midway through the second quarter, it should have been over with. Bevel had his chance.
Yes.
I mean, we had 39 passing yards in 60 minutes. I mean,
how insane is that?
We had 27 minutes of possession for 39 passing yards. I realized some of it was on Wildcat, rushing the whole time.
Right.
Which I was happy that they did, because we talked beforehand about making the game slow, not running hurry up and trying to shorten their possessions by, holding the ball a little longer.
Right.
And we actually were, we weren't snapping the ball at 5 like we probably should have.
Right.
But at least we weren't running hurry up. And then,
but we were for a while, but we'll get back to that.
So you give him a drive or two to not do anything, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
You run the Wildcat, that's effective, but I don't see without having the ability to throw the ball, which Micah Bowens would have been the guy that should have practiced in the Wildcat all week, or you could let Braden Willis throw the ball a little bit. But to not have even the option to not Eric Gray. If you'd have given somebody the option to throw what's crazy is Texas still couldn't defend it.
I know.
Like Eric Gray would take a direct snap and just run for 7 yards out the middle. Or Braden Willis would do the zone read.
Yep.
And the guy going across would get 5 yards, or Braden Willis would get 5 yards. So it was working. But
then we do something different.
You've got Davis Bevel out there at receiver.
We're playing with 10 guys.
So
blocking, apparently.
Playing with 10 guys.
And that gets back to what I was saying.
Playing with 10 guys.
So we're... And so they totally relate. So I'm glad you bring that up, because I want to talk about that. Not only is he clearly not the only option, we have options, but for some reason, running a Wildcat is an option over guys who actually are quarterbacks
on scholarship.
Who have, one of them has experience at Penn State.
Yeah.
The other's a 5-star. Give him a chance.
I mean, if you think back,
Booty was he was the number 2 JUCO transfer in the country this year.
Well, and think back to I agree. I think
he can't throw the ball.
Exactly. And then so I want to let you finish, because I don't want that thought, but to relate it back to what you just said. And I'm not saying he has to be the quarterback every time and not run the Wildcat. That might have been a brilliant scheme. but it's not when there's only 10 players on the field.
Yeah.
And Davis is not going to. He's not going to be a. What did I say it wrong again?
Yeah. Davis.
No,
Bevel.
it's not David.
Davis Bevel. I said it right.
You said
I know,
Devin.
I'm
earlier.
just messing with you. I'm just
Davis Bevel is not going to be a threat. Like, again, back to what Mike said at the game, why in the hell is Texas putting anybody on him?
Yeah.
The guy, are you telling me he's going to, A, be able to get down the field, B, that someone can throw the ball 40 yards to him, C, that you can't catch him before he gets to that
Close.
ball?
Yeah.
None
He
of those
can
things
catch
are
a
going to
ball.
happen.
He literally, they'd snap the ball, he'd take 3 steps and turn around and walk back.
Now, I understand what they were trying to do, I believe. I think what they were trying to do was, we're going to run with him out there, and then when we have success, and they did this, they tried this, we'll move without substitution into him being quarterback.
Yeah.
Great idea.
But he's the wrong guy to
But
do
it doesn't work.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
He's the wrong guy to do it. Obviously, as the game goes on, get another guy in there to do that same chore. Because as we watched, it took him 5-6 seconds to get all the way back into the quarterback slot.
Yeah.
They could have substituted anybody they wanted to in
Right.
that time span, and I think they did.
And we weren't trying to run hurry up to begin with.
Yeah, and we
I mean,
shouldn't have been.
Right. Because our defense was too busy, trying to rest on the sideline after giving up all those yards.
Well, that and the lack of complementary football and,
We wanted
and
to shorten the
understanding we
game.
couldn't, but we still ran some hurry up. We still early on were doing that, and what are we doing that for? So, Connor, I interrupted your thought.
No. I mean, it's piggybacking off everything you guys are saying. Is I think once we sold out on the Wildcat, why are you not putting in a quarterback in Bowens specifically, in my opinion?
Yes.
I saw Bowens come in the spring game, sat in the pocket a few times even, and slung it around a bit.
Or he can run zone read. So
And he
even
can run
even
zone read.
You can
Him doing the jump pass is a lot better than Eric Gray going.
you can
and
go
doing
back
that
and
jump pass.
forth when you could run Wildcat for a couple plays and get 2 first downs, let's say, and then he's still on the field and he can run zone read. Or he can actually throw the ball because he's a quarterback.
Exactly, or he can actually run, and if you throw the ball up to him, he's actually going to be a threat. You could do a lot of things, and he actually is going to be a threat in the football field. It is frustrating that they can't see that, and they don't recognize the fact that you've got opportunities there. If you think the back to the Dylan Gabriel deception, if you think that's going to throw Texas off, you know what might actually throw Texas off? Different quarterbacks who actually have different skill sets that are in the play, actually playing in the game.
It's like we sent it in like halfway through the we keep bringing up the second quarter. It's like we sent it in and said, I was in the bathroom when they scored their last one right before half. I heard the cannon go
The
off.
disgusting bathrooms, by the way.
Oh my, ugh. Midweek topic.
Always combo.
Oh.
You
Yeah,
went there today.
OU's team was in that bathroom there for a bit. No, it was. I think it's like we just sent in like, hey, we're gonna stick to this, and this is just what we're gonna do today.
No,
That
there was no
it.
halftime adjustments whatsoever.
There were no considerations
Literally
for anything.
zero.
None.
They said this worked
On either
in
side of the ball.
practice, therefore we're going to continue to do it. And speaking of the other side of the ball, that's where I've got my note of a 3-man front. I don't know if we have to go through and chart play by play, drive by drive, but my recollection is it has never worked this season, including in our games where we looked really good. And when we've run a 4-man front, it's looked pretty darn good. And we've had success. Today would be the only exception.
When has a 3-man front worked for our team in the past 6 years?
And what does it take to make that work? It seems to me it
And what
must
has worked
take a
against
lot
Texas
of,
in the past?
of talent and people executing at a
Dialing
very
it
high
up
level.
and getting pressure on a quarterback like you kept mentioning today, which is a great point, an immobile quarterback who was previously hurt. And we did not put him on the ground more than 1 or 2 times.
and never really put deep pressure on him.
I'll give Texas a little credit because Quinn Ewers, if he stays on campus 2 more years, he's a Heisman contender.
He's
for
very
sure.
good. Oh, he's
He
very
is
good.
He's got a
I give
touch-
Texas a lot of credit.
He's got a cannon for an arm, and he has a great touch on those intermediate balls, which they destroyed us with today.
Yes.
They weren't doing the OSU method of just throw it down
Lobbing
deep
up.
and hope you get a
No.
pass interference
no.
all the time.
No, he was hitting
He was-
worthy in stride.
he's very-
he threw a guy open
very
for a
good.
touchdown over a Guebu that was just perfect. Absolutely perfect.
And that sucks because
It does suck.
now he spent a year at Ohio State, and then this is his first year at Texas, so technically he could play 1 more year at Texas and then be able to go pro, which I'm hoping for because
Yeah.
I don't want to see that guy for another couple of years because he looks very good.
We need to hope for everything we can because I'm afraid we've become the new Texas. This is just really, really sad. So, a few different points here. I'm going to try to hit them in a way that makes the most sense. So let's get into some nitty-gritty of the game, and then we'll get to a bigger, higher-level issue. So we mentioned Gray. We've been talking about Gray since game one, even when we were having success, that none of us feel like he looks like running back one. I still don't think he looks like running back one. I don't understand
At
it.
this point, he is OU one. He is. They would put Eric Gray in at defensive back before they ever did anything to sub him out. It's insane to me. It's so wild.
It's troubling. It's really troubling. I don't understand it.
And Barnes still looks good.
Barnes still looks good and didn't see the field until, what, deep in the third, if not the fourth quarter?
Third quarter.
And in a game you're running the ball,
Yeah.
where you're running the ball that much, why
Yeah.
aren't you subbing in fresh legs and going like crazy?
I mean, in the Wildcat, you got Braden Willis taking the snap, and then you've got Barnes behind him. That's your best chance to move the ball, in my
absolutely.
opinion.
How about Barnes and Major and no quarterback? You know, get an extra blocker / run threat. So many options there in
so
my
many
mind.
other things we could have done. There's
So
so many other things.
When you say that about Gray, and I want to talk about, it seems to be the case at quarterback, at least today. It seems to be the case at defensive back, maybe some of the linebacker play. Are we favoring locker room maturity over talent? Are we getting guys that are in some other way ticking all the boxes, checking off all the...
It's not all the boxes.
Well,
when
yeah.
they've got less talent, that is a box.
Well, not... setting that aside.
They're ticking the seniority boxes in terms of experience.
Yes, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
But when you say checking all the boxes,
No, not
talent
all boxes.
has to be one of the boxes.
I agree, but I'm saying they've got this other checklist that they're working off of all these other things that they want to see done, and it's call it the off the field stuff, and all of these guys who are checking off all of these items for off the field stuff, somehow that allows them to trump anybody that's more talented than them. It worries me, and it gets back to things like the soul mission and everything else, which is great. It's wonderful. No one's a detractor of that, but it's not your core competency, and it's not what you're paid to do. You're paid to win football games. And if any of that stuff is a distraction, or if it impedes your ability to put the best talent on the field and execute, it is something that is a negative for your football program, because your job is to win football games and make the program better. And so I could see a conflict here in a vision, but at the end of the day, again, back to the business analysis, all of this other fluff stuff is great. Your job is to profit maximize as a business. Your job is to win football games. Win football games and figure out how to win football games, and all the other stuff should fall into place. I fear they're making decisions about who's playing based on things like not even what they're seeing in practice, but more of what they're seeing in the locker room and in the surrounding issues, and rewarding that stuff rather than putting guys on the field that put us in the best position to win.
There are some guys that in the meeting rooms can point out on tape what they're doing wrong. Deshaun White might be like, oh, well, I know I'm supposed to be over here. I just didn't make it on that play. Or I know I need to drop back here to cover that guy, but instead I stepped up because of play action. And he can point out all his mistakes on film, but when he's on the field, he's not doing it.
Doesn't matter.
So that shouldn't be a box to check when you can see it
Justin
on film.
Broyles
and
is
not,
the same thing.
Justin Broyles is the same guy. He may be awesome in the meeting room and know all of his wrongs and can point out before the coaches point out where he messed up. He can say, "Oh, I should have done this instead of that. That's my bad. I'll do it better."
I'd rather
and in practice he does it a little bit better. But when the lights are on, they're not doing it.
I'd rather have those guys as GAs at this point to say, I'm going to go help coach these young guys up and sacrifice depth and get guys who are going to be guys, than run the dudes who can point those mistakes out of their own or of other people even, and then run them back out there the next week. Which I don't know. Today was a blur. I didn't pay as much attention to the defense. I feel like Broyles was not in the game as much.
Well, they ran people in weird positions. They changed the positions up.
Woody Washington was playing
played
safety at some
yeah.
point. So, I mean,
The corners weren't doing their job.
I don't know, man.
And guys were getting open. But I'll tell you one of the
Because
big...
that was, back to your original point, Steve, when we did rush 4, our corners were massively exposed.
Mm-hmm.
Our secondary was massively exposed.
One of our major defects today was Danny Stutzman getting run over.
Yeah.
He's not a big enough body
texted that to someone.
He's not making the tackle when it comes to him. He's getting knocked off the ball by the ball. I mean, he's getting the ball carrier's knocking him over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that shouldn't. I mean,
got
Bijan's
trucked. He's getting
good,
trucked.
but
He's not that good.
he's not as good as
He's not.
Danny Stutzman made him look today.
No, he's not.
We don't have
Earl Campbell.
a body at linebacker.
Right.
We've got some guys that are not, and they're not even fast. That's usually the
Greg was
trade-off.
too slow.
If you have
Oh my
if
God,
you have a
I
guy
think
that's a
Greg
little bit
was-
on the leaner side, he's usually fast.
Right.
If you got a guy on the heavier side that can stop the
He's
run,
super
he's
strong.
slow. So it's strong but slow.
Yeah.
And neither of those guys excel in anything right now.
No, it's the classic smile effect. You can maximize one or the other, but if you're stuck in the middle, you're in the worst spot.
Yep.
Middle guys.
It's really frustrating. So just to get into some other nitty gritty things, I would have liked to see them give up tempo earlier when it obviously was not helpful. When we needed to shorten the game, we were halfway doing that. I felt like we were halfway doing a lot of things today. I think we were halfway being innovative. I mentioned in the midweek pod, I would rather see you lose unconventionally try to win unconventionally than lose conventionally. I think they chose to lose conventionally while looking unconventional today.
Yeah.
And the Wildcat looks unconventional, but it's really not that unconventional. And if you continue to do the same thing and you're limiting yourself to basically 10 players on the field, you're putting yourself in a handicap that's not actually adding anything. It's a new wrinkle the same way having a guy run backwards would be. It doesn't add anything. Hell, it looks very different, but it's not going to add any ability to win the football game.
Yeah, if you're gonna beat Georgia Tech, go beat Georgia Tech for a game.
Yeah.
Don't act
Commit
like
to
it's,
it.
Yeah, don't act like it's like, all right, first, second down, okay, put Bevel back there. Let's figure it out on third.
I want-
Third and 7. No, like run the Wildcat 3rd and 7 and see what happens, and then play 4 downs the whole game.
And know you're going to play 4 downs.
Yeah.
I like going for the fake field goal. I thought
Yeah.
that was great. You get one block and he's in the end zone.
Or if he's just a little bit faster,
He's
hits
just
the
a little
corner
bit
and
faster. Boy, that was
I
frustrating.
thought when it happened that he was going to get there.
I thought he was going to get there too.
and the
he
guy
just got
he
caught.
got closed on.
He
yeah.
just got caught.
Which I can't fault the kicker for not being fast.
No.
mean-
It was well executed.
Yes.
It just
And he
didn't-
picked up the first
He
down.
got the first down.
He did his
First down.
job.
Right.
He did his job.
Yeah.
But you got to commit to taking consistent, reasonable chances, and we didn't. We get down there after that, and we end up going for it, having to go for it on 4th down, and even then we don't go for it in the way that you would expect us to. Like you said, you got a 6'6" quarterback, put him under center, and just push the guy forward.
Yeah, it was 4th and 1.
It's not hard.
Yeah.
No one can,
The
almost
Bush
no one can
push
stop
from
that.
the Notre Dame
Exactly.
UC game was illegal at the time.
But now it's legal.
now it's legal,
and everyone does it.
He's 6'6", get under center, and
dive.
put Willis
Willis
and
behind
Parker
him.
behind you.
Wilson Parker
And
just
go.
shoving forward. You're going to get a
Exactly.
yard.
Yep.
The other thing I'd
And
like
if you
to see
can't,
him
you
do-
should be playing for Conference USA or
Exactly.
Or put
the
Willis
AAC or something.
under center and let him plow through and get a first down.
Exactly.
Has he ever taken a snap under center in practice?
How
Probably not.
hard can
But
that
still,
possibly be?
it's an
Now,
exchange.
I see competent quarterbacks in the NFL drop the snap.
Would have rather
Hell,
seen
Baker's
it.
dropped snaps. This
Okay,
season.
would have rather seen that.
Worst
today.
case scenario, Texas has the football.
Right,
Texas
exactly.
got the football.
And they got the
Right.
football.
Yeah.
So I would like to have seen them just drop back and throw the ball downfield. The one time he threw the ball downfield, right before the end of the half, it was an interception, but it was a well-thrown
Yeah,
ball
it
that
wasn't a
Brook
bad ball.
probably should have been able to go up and fight for.
Yeah.
Another issue, the fact that our receivers won't fight for balls and apparently are just not very talented.
Is that the only pass we threw further than 15
That
yards?
was the only one.
The entire day?
The guy can throw the ball deep. Just let him throw the ball deep. I don't care.
I mean, when
You're
Caleb
bound to
came in,
catch one every once in a while.
Caleb came in last year,
Be competitive
and the
for it,
play
at
that we
least.
all remember, the Mims touchdown, was
Was
a
it throw it up
50-50
for
ball.
grabs?
Yeah,
Grabs.
and we
Yeah.
didn't
I
try that
It wasn't
at all.
even 50-50. And yeah, we talked about this last week as well. We're not throwing any sort of risky balls that are going to turn into rewarding scenarios.
How many pass interferences did we get against
Exactly.
TCU last week?
Exactly.
That we could have. I mean, I'm like I said, you don't care about going for some gimmicky ball to win the game. I'm just trying to get a score.
Yeah.
You know, if you
Well,
throw
today we were
two
just
balls
trying to get
downfield and get
yards.
2 pass interferences, that's 30 yards
And heck,
that were at least a
Unlike in the
chance.
NFL, where if the guy intercepts it and falls down, he can get back up.
Yeah.
It's college.
Yeah.
If he's going to intercept it, you're probably it's good as a punt.
Right.
It doesn't
Which
matter.
is why it didn't bother
Throw
me at
the
the
ball
end of the
deep.
half.
Exactly.
But that's
Throw the
something that
ball
should have been
deep.
tried earlier
Again and again
in
and
the,
again
in
and
the second
again and
quarter
again.
and later in the half.
It should have been tried a lot because the guy can throw the ball deep. And let's just see what happens. So that was a frustration. And it relates to what we saw in the second quarter. when the frustration was really hitting a tipping point for us. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of what happened there in the stands, but I will say there was a point where quite a few of us, myself included, were booing. And we were definitely booing. I made that decision to boo. I willfully and thoughtfully did it.
It was not
and
rash.
I would do it again. It was not rash. It was
Because
not
they kept sending Bevel out?
because they kept sending Bevel out.
Yeah.
I'm not booing Bevel. I'm booing the decision. I'm booing
Much
the
like
guy.
the Mike Stoops, Baylor,
Exactly.
when he wouldn't.
Exactly.
Yes, Julian Wilson.
Yes.
And the point I made very loudly to the people that didn't understand why I was booing and why everyone else around me was and
We're
what
not
we were
booing
yelling
kids.
about. I'm not booing the kid. I'm booing the decision. And in fact, I'm doing it for his benefit too, because it is not fair, the position you're putting that kid in, to go out in a way that he can't possibly win. It was awful what they were doing. And it was not putting us in any kind of position as a football team to excel and win. So it's not fair to him. It's not fair to the rest of your players. It's not fair to those quarterbacks who are sitting on the bench. None of that was fair, and those guys get paid millions of dollars in this billion-dollar industry to do this stuff. You bet your ass I'm going to boo. They need to make better decisions. And I don't think they'd have a problem with it.
There was not a lot of decisions made today to go win the game. After we fell behind, there was not a lot that was done to say, we're going to try to dig ourselves out of this hole to go and try to win this game. It was very, we used this earlier in the season, it was very vanilla, and it was very soft, and it was just, there's not a lot of words that can describe
Let's
it.
get back to a midweek pod or whatever we want to call it during the off season. We hired Levy. I wasn't a big fan of it based on the stuff that happened at Baylor was part of it. But then my other concern was when he was at Baylor, he was a running backs coach.
Right.
Jay was super excited because of the innovative Baylor offense.
Right. We all were, except for you.
Except you count how many people are in the box. That decides if you run or throw, that whole thing. Bevel probably doesn't have the experience to make that decision, so he's not audibling. So that is one factor that doesn't help you in this game. But then also,
But the whole season, looking at the whole season.
then Levy goes to UCF, does really well. With who was the coach? Was Malzahn there, or was he there with Heupel?
No, he's there with Heupel.
He was there with Heupel.
Yeah.
Well, Heupel's the offensive coordinator.
No. He was there with Frost, I believe.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Frost or Heupel, regardless.
Yeah, one of the two. So he's the offensive coordinator at the time, but is he really, the main guy between if Frost or Heupel, whichever one?
Mm-hmm.
Then he goes to Mississippi, and everybody knows Kiffin. He was an offensive coordinator at USC and at Bama,
Alabama, yeah.
and he's still probably making the calls in practice, and maybe Levy's making the individual calls at Mississippi.
He's probably game planning.
But is Levy the guy? Because this season we were vanilla the first two games, can't tell anything. Nebraska, we thought, here we go. We're opening the playbook, all this other stuff. Well, Nebraska's horrific, so you really can't judge anything off that game. So 3 games in a row, we have not done what we need to do on offense. Defense is a completely different story because they're terrible. But Levy hasn't proven anything, and now the cause for concern that I had early in the year might be coming to fruition that Levy is not the innovative guy that we hope he is.
Absolutely.
Well,
it
and what's
is.
so funny is you have that quote from Cale Gundy before the season, how Jeff Levy is one of the most innovative and one of the best offensive minds, if not the best.
That was
offensive
just throwing
mind
shade
he's
at
ever-
Lincoln.
And it was, but still, it's just like I'm going to buy into the hype if a coach is saying it regardless. Like
Right.
I'm at least going to expect some innovation and some creativity. What we've seen over the past 3 weeks has been nothing of that sort.
Well, thank you for the segue, because one of my talking points here is a question, and I want to continue on the same
Is it gonna be a
vein that
poll
you've
question?
introduced. No, were we lied to? And I get to a couple different points here. We were told a lot of things about this, and our expectations were built in a certain way about improvements that were being made, about strength and conditioning that was coming in a way that had never happened before, and about improvements in how good and the quality of play that we were going to see.
And the culture change.
And the culture change, and the innovations, the whole thing in
Kit
every
and caboodle.
detail. Were we lied to? Or were they just deceived? Did they not understand how poor these players were? Or could they not, or were they effectively lying because they wanted to say good things about these players and they were trying to thread a needle? Maybe they knew their limitations, but they can't just come out and say it. I don't know.
You can connect the dot probably loosely back to the post that Jay sent earlier with the players that are on the roster now, and hindsight's always 20/20, but you can easily make that connection. But I also don't think either one of those reasons are excused from what we're seeing currently.
No, I agree, and all of it's a concern. So I've unlike what we've seen out of our team and out of our coaching, I am going to update my priors. I'm going to update for the new information, and I'm going to say that now I am very concerned about our coordinator positions.
We're halfway through the season. That's a valid reason.
I am very concerned with what we're seeing on the field. I'm very concerned with the developments, with the regression, with the fact that we've moved backwards so rapidly. And all of it is something that we have to start questioning. And I am a very big supporter of Brent Venables. But all of it is subject to concern and question. Even the fact that he was coaching with lots of success in the ACC. We have to worry about a lot of things. Now, he had a lot of talent. I'm a believer. I would assign highest probability, and all these probabilities are well less than 50% at this point, but that we need to make a change at the coordinator positions. And so, understand what I just said. Less than 50% likelihood or confidence in that. I'm saying that we've gone from something that would be a 5 to 10%, which is a normal state in entering a situation like this, to maybe we're at 25%, which is a level of concern. I'm not saying anybody's on a hot seat. I'm not saying that we have to make a change, but I'm saying there's levels of concern that have been elevated here that we have to rationally consider given what we've seen.
And if there's a time to do it, it's after year one, where you do not have a fully established system on either side of the ball. Brent Venables has a system that he wants to run defensively, obviously, which I think is flowing through Ted Roof. And if you need to make Ted Roof kind of a guy that's like, hey, this wasn't going to be long-term for you anyways, that's defense. But, I mean, if offensively you say, look, I don't think this is going to work for where we want to go, then maybe you do say, hey, Jeff,
it's not working out, man.
It's not going to work out. I need something different for what I want to do with this team. And after year one is the time to do it, because we're losing a lot of guys at receiver next year. You're bringing a lot of different guys in, and yeah, some of those guys Levy's recruited. Nonetheless, you got to think about it. I am right there with you, and I think the probability has gone up pretty significantly. I don't know how much of a spine Brent Venables has to actually do that after everything that he has said publicly. But you do have to, you go back to Mike's point with the business and how a business is run, and if you don't look at this from an organizational standpoint, you're not looking at it correctly.
That's a great point. So I think you've been substantiated in your concerns. Unfortunately, Lucas, I know you don't want to be vindicated.
I'd much rather be wrong.
You'd much rather be wrong. We'd much rather be wrong. You'd much rather have been wrong in your prediction on the score, and all of you guys had the right direction on the score with Texas winning. I would have loved to have been wrong in the argument I got into in the stands with the folks that were sitting around us. Many of them, quite a few people, agreeing with us early on. We were definitely the forerunners in that conversation, though, and that side, and we got vindicated. And it was not fun. But by the end of the game, we looked like we knew what we were talking about when we were pretty upset early on with what we were seeing. Sorry, my voice is going.
Sorry,
we spent a lot of days.
All that booing.
All that yelling at Texas. Trust me, I gave their band hell.
We yelled a lot.
I was doing my part as a fan, and I think that's part of it. And we're an important part of it. The fans today were fantastic. The fans in the Oklahoma side gave tremendous support to the Sooners. They applauded them when they walked off the field at halftime. There was clear support. They clearly wanted them to
showed
do
up for the game
as good as they could.
We showed up for the game after what we saw the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we showed up in force.
We didn't just show up. This is not cheap.
No.
This is extremely expensive.
Which is something else that bothered me, which, Ava, what did the guy say in front of you?
He was just saying he was saying a lot of stuff, but then he basically just told his daughter, like, you should be happy to be here. It's a privilege that you're here.
It's a privilege. I spent over $1,000 holistically.
Just for this game, much less the entire situation.
To go for less than 24 hours.
Not talking about your time.
Exactly. The opportunity
That's
cost
not worth
aside.
anything.
So,
Well, his time.
I beg to differ, and so does Shelby, I promise.
And so does the billable hour that he...
Exactly. So, I mean, it's I wish we could have that guy and his whole crew on the pod so we could explain to them how stupid they are.
Is Ted Roof Ruffin McNeil?
That's a great question.
He's Ruffin McNeil, but
He's been to a lot of places. He's never stayed in the same place twice. He may be a good recruiter, a great recruiter. It's a big concern. All of that's a really, really, really big concern. I think all of it is something that is going to be a lingering issue. It's unfortunate we're in that position, but this is a make or break point for where the direction of the program's going. And I see it in a way, all of these things are very sensitive. You've got, for any program, you've got the worry that you're not going to be as good as you want to be, and you're not going to ever be as good as you think you should be. And we look around at a lot of programs that get a lot of support, and they're just not very good. We always talk about Texas A&M,
Nebraska,
South Carolina, Nebraska. I fear we're the next Nebraska.
God, please.
And we
please
don't have.
Don't say that.
We don't have the fundamentals working in our favor that some other places do. We have USC to look at as somebody that has some pluses and minuses.
We have
a
less
big
money.
Plus is they're very rich in a very nice part of the country geographically. One negative is the geography also works against them because it's on the West Coast. But if you look at Texas, they've got all the money. They're in a much better place geographically, both for recruiting as well as just the climate. If you look at the Florida schools, they've got a lot going for them there. Even most of the schools in the Southeast Conference.
Where
have a
games
lot
are going to be
going.
played in the Southeast Conference.
And so it's troubling and scary.
Opportunities
We got to
will
be
less.
careful
Yeah.
about where we are. I feel like I'm on a real tender point right here, and I do agree with the people that were pointing out how this is going to be a marathon, and we're realizing how thin we are at so many positions. And you're going to see, I mean, we're playing like a team that we see a lot of these other teams do, up and down, big wins, big losses. We're not used to that, and we want better, but we want to break out of that, and breaking out of that's going to be tough.
So this is where we could use Jay, but just a quick off-topic question. I mean, what is Brent Venables telling recruits when he's calling them tonight after the game, or tomorrow after he gets home and he's settling in and his quote-unquote day off? What's he telling recruits to, ease a 49-0 loss to your arch rival on national television in the morning primetime game?
The recruits that were at the game, because since we were the home team, we were allowed to bring, official visitors.
They hung out with us. They're fine, I promise.
And
We saw them.
what you got to be telling them is, hey, look how bad we are on talent, on defense. You can come right in and play. But has he proven that on the field? He's not letting the most talented kids play. He's letting the Justin Broyles and the Deshaun Whites of the world continue to play when there are probably more talented guys behind them that don't have the textbook or whatever, the meeting room crap that we talked about earlier.
Or just the experience in general.
We talked about that on the dart ride back.
How is he doing that?
Exactly. We had that exact conversation on the dart ride. We were saying if I were negatively recruiting against him, that's what I would say is, he says this.
You're a difference maker, but you're not getting on the field.
Look at these difference makers he's not putting on the field. Do you think you're going to be any different? Here you will play. There, he says you will, and you the other guys don't. It's a big concern.
Well, and I meant to do it, and I just didn't. I maybe for the midweek, I want to pull up the clip of him and his philosophy around playing freshmen that goes against everything that he has done in the past 3 weeks, because it is a stark hypocrisy from what he said in a press conference after either the UTEP or the Kent State game.
Yep.
To what we've seen over the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, and it was something he said, I think going back into maybe before spring ball, about how everybody will play.
Everybody has a shot.
Everybody has a shot. Talk is cheap. And when the rubber hits the road, it's tough to make that executive decision to actually do it, because it is risky. It does feel weird. It's very difficult when you're facing, the next opponent and a 3-0 record. It should feel real easy now at 3-3.
Yep.
Especially how this 3-3 has come about. That you don't have anything to lose. Put these guys out there and let's see what happens.
Yeah, sell the
Everyone
house.
expects
Sell the house
it.
and go.
Everyone expects it. Everyone's talking about it. You're not going to give anyone who's going to say, man, I sure wish they wouldn't have done that. They took too many chances this year and blew the season.
Yep. Sell the house that Lincoln built and start building your own. You have guys in here. You don't have a lot of them, but you got a few that are your guys. Show them that they are going to be a part of the foundation that you are already telling us is being built, but you're not showing us that's being built, and go and run with it. I would take 3 more losses with the new guys in there, and are being competitive
and building
showing,
for the future.
Exactly, as opposed to, I know what Deshaun White's going to give me every week.
Right.
I know what Justin Broyles is going to give me every week, and it's not a knock against those guys. They're just not good.
They've hit a ceiling.
They're not good.
And their ceiling is not good enough. It's not Sooner football. And it's not championship level football for sure. And we want championship level football, and we know we're not going to get that this year. That is all gone.
And that's not a loose expectation
No,
to have
it's not at all.
as this program.
It's their expectation. I believe it should be.
Apparently, from what we heard last week, the players have some sort of preconceived notion that the logo on their helmet, like you guys mentioned in the midweek pod, makes a difference, which tells you they have some sort of expectation that they should be performing at some sort of level that they are not.
Well, and I think that's a good point of not just how I want to see them finish the season, but what I hoped to see them do today they didn't, and that's go down swinging. Go down swinging, throwing everything you got at them, and changing things up. And we gave it a good shot with something innovative early on in this game that came up short and didn't work. And I don't care if you can look back and say we were just a play or two away. When you're down 28-0, it's all over, and you need to do something drastically different. There's nothing to lose. I want to see them spend the rest of the season going down swinging, doing anything they can to put us in a better position game by game, but more importantly, season by season to win.
49-0 would have felt a lot less painful if we did exactly what you just said. If we would have thrown some punches, yeah, maybe Evers gets in there and throws 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
But we're throwing the ball down the field and our wide receivers are actually getting involved in the game.
Let me see every one of these quarterbacks who are apparently awful.
Yeah, because
Think back to the 2020 season. Rattler starts playing like crap in the Texas game. They pull him.
They did.
They put in
Mordecai.
They put Mordecai in. He comes in.
He's a guy from the Bible, right?
Plays a couple series, and then next thing you know, Rattler comes out in the second half and plays better.
Yeah.
But we didn't give that an opportunity, other than the Wildcat. But
Lincoln Riley is smart enough to make two years in a row to make an adjustment at quarterback.
And obviously one he didn't want to make in that game.
It's crazy that you didn't give Booty or Evers the opportunity the entire second half. It was 28-0 at halftime. There was no signs that Bevel could complete anything outside of a 3-yard. I mean, we had 39 passing yards. 39.
Well, what was
those numbers were phenomenally bad.
Yeah.
Just unbelievably sad.
Like you said, if Evers comes in and throws 3 interceptions, at least you're trying to do something other than the status quo of nothing.
What was the tweet that it was Eric Bailey's tweets and says, Venables says in his press conference, "We got backup quarterbacks reps all week. You base it on what you saw during the course of the week and what you've seen during fall camp, and we felt that Davis gave us the best opportunity to win and be successful." So what is Jeff Lebby saying at halftime to Brent to say, look, Davis is it. This is all we've got. That there's no way that is factual.
Even if it's factual, I will tell them logically, if you break down that statement, that does not contradict anything we're saying or what the essence of the spirit of that question is. You may have not only seen that and thought that put you in the best position. The question was not, why didn't General Booty start the game? The question is, why didn't someone else get into the game?
And he says in that statement, the backup quarterbacks got reps this week. Great, Davis may have had the better reps. Guess what? He didn't do anything in the first half of the game.
Right.
So let's figure something else out.
And the game is pretty much over.
It's out of hand at that
I didn't
point.
look at the ESPN, the calculations on probability
We
of
never
winning.
we were never on it, basically.
I mean, I'm sure at 28-0, it's a 95+%
If you look
in
at
the
it, it's
first
like
half
Texas all the way.
of Texas winning. So there's nothing to lose
Well,
there.
I mean, it probably was last year too when it was 28-7 after the first quarter.
And we changed quarterbacks.
And we changed quarterbacks. And I'll tell you one thing that really irks me is you guys were at the game, so you weren't subjected to Greg McElroy on the
He's
coverage.
bitter about us ever since we kicked his butt.
He's
in
awful.
the Sugar Bowl.
And he comes out when Texas is moving the ball down the field, and they ran up tempo, and he comes out and says, "Oh, Oklahoma isn't prepared for up tempo offense." Blah blah blah. And I'm thinking, we see it every damn day in practice.
How can we possibly?
Do you watch college football?
Exactly.
We run up tempo all season, and you're
And
gonna
all camp. All
and you're
fall-
going to
all
tell
camp.
me that our defense isn't prepared for up tempo.
Right.
His point was they kept looking to the sidelines to get the play in, and he said Bijan Robinson's already got the handoff, and he's at the line of scrimmage when they're realizing that the play's started. Blah
Right.
blah blah. Which that part of it was true. We should have got the calls in quicker, but to say that we aren't experienced at facing
Right.
an up-tempo offense is the dumbest thing you could possibly
The smart
say.
comment would be, how in the hell are these guys not prepared for
Yeah.
up tempo?
Why are they not getting the play call in
Because that's
to
all they
run the
see.
up tempo? Yeah, because that's all they do in practice.
Texas at the start of the third quarter, win probability was 99.4%.
There is nothing to lose in that situation. And the idea that you are going to continue to do the thing that has put you in a position to have less than 1% chance of winning. Let's be generous. Let's say there was only that it's not anywhere close to that. Let's say there was a 5% chance of winning. The idea that you're going to just continue to do the same thing, that you've got virtually no chance
0.6%.
of success,
0.6%.
It would have been nice to score
is
a
ridiculous.
touchdown today.
Yes, it would.
Or a field
Or a
goal.
field goal.
Or a field. I honestly thought after the fake field goal and they stuffed us, because it was 21-0, I think at that point.
No,
maybe
it was
it was 14. I told
would've
my
taken
son,
the
I said,
points.
I think we should take the field goal instead of going for this.
I thought we should go for it because of the down and distance. That's the math. But man, I had the same thought of I just want to get some points.
I also
on the
didn't
board.
think we'd go the entire game without scoring.
Right.
If you would have told me at that point, hey, you're
Oh,
not going to
obviously.
score anything, I was like, let's get the damn field goal.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do a Bill Callahan
Right.
kick a field goal with the final seconds of the game just so you don't get the shutout.
I would have taken
but
it.
I would have taken the field goal early in the game to just get a little momentum, because next thing you know, Texas goes right down the midfield and scores again.
Well, and a perfect little kind of just to cap it all off, Nick Evers is out there in the last drive. Barnes goes and runs for 15 yards in the last drive of the game, get a first down with 50 seconds left. Or no, I'm sorry, like 38 seconds left.
And we
So,
didn't run another play.
Didn't run another play.
But
We
we're
didn't even
standing
try
out there
it.
like we're going to.
Yeah.
Like
So,
if you're not going to run a play, just get off.
Yeah, Brent Venables should have been running out with 35 seconds left if he had no plans to do that. So it's just,
Another thing you guys didn't
terrible.
see today was the Kansas TCU game. Kansas loses their quarterback. Their backup comes in and marches right down the field and scores a touchdown. He scores more touchdowns in the second half. How does Kansas have a better backup quarterback than the University of Oklahoma?
Right.
I realize when Lincoln left, he took Caleb Williams with him. Rattler transferred, so we lose our top two quarterbacks, and we get Gabriel in, who we hope is going to be the guy. Obviously, he's injured, but seriously, how do we not have anybody on this entire roster that can move the ball at all?
So I've got a theory that just came to me, so I'll take it with a grain of salt. But coming back to blaming Jeff Lebby for this, he sees these guys in practice and says that our best bet is with Bevel. He goes through all of the offseason and structures his game in a way that I think obviously puts us in a position where it's Dylan Gabriel or bust, and doesn't think we can win with anyone else, and actually tells him, I believe, either subconsciously or explicitly, don't get hurt, don't do something dumb, because you're our only hope.
Which explains why he hasn't run hardly any this season.
And hasn't, hasn't. Dylan Gabriel
Because we were
hasn't
calling
run
for a couple
with his
times,
legs.
just
Yes.
get
Yes.
5 yards and get
Yes.
down.
Or even taking chances throwing the ball the way we think he should. And I think it explains why, back to my theory that I'm going to flush out in a second, the reason when we see a backup come in, he doesn't execute the offense that we normally see out there. He's just running into the line and stuff like that. Jeff Lebby may have a limitation that he has this real narrow channel of what his offense can do. And it takes a very special quarterback who can identify with it and put that square peg into that slightly square hole. And not anyone else can do it. And he can't adapt to some other quarterback and some other style. And that's a big shortcoming if that's the case.
Yeah.
Because these guys are quarterbacks. They can do stuff. You should be able to adapt your game plan and say, all right, we're going to do, just run basic offense. Just what'd you do in high school? Let's do that.
It sucks that Lincoln left in the way he did, but he was a guy that went from Baker being awesome, running it a certain way, and then he gets Kyler, and he changes the offense up to where
match it.
He ran when he needed to. He
Right.
wasn't running all the time,
Right.
but he was able to run, so they integrated that in the offense. Then you got Jalen Hurts comes in. They completely revamped the offense just for Jalen Hurts.
Who
And it
was
worked-
a master
and
at
it
what
worked
he did.
magically for that whole season.
It did.
The Baylor comeback was incredible.
Just
But he
the
tailored
good
the
play
offense
was incredible.
towards a quarterback. How can we not have an offense for Gabriel, and then when you know that the guy coming in can't react as fast, run the up tempo, that
Whatever.
you had an entire week knowing that Gabriel wasn't going to play
Again, just run
to plan
basic offense.
something different for what Bevel's limitations are.
Well, I can picture all these coaches who were like, "Oh, Jeff Lebby's the next head coach," or that all these ADs who are like, "Jeff Lebby's the next head coach." Kind of raising their eyebrows after what they've seen the last couple of weeks. I'm like, dodge that
Great
bullet.
point. And
Dodge that bullet.
And I'll come back around to something else to throw some shade at Levy. And we make the comparison with Lincoln. We cast a lot of dispersions on Lincoln, and we gave the current staff a lot of grace because of where Lincoln left us. And we talk about the shortcomings of Lincoln. But Lincoln is a very talented offensive coordinator with exceptional skills and a great track record. When you look at these shortcomings we're talking about in our current team, especially specifically with the offense and Jeff Lebby, let's talk about and think about what you said, Connor, about the next head coach. It is very possible Jeff Lebby is thinking, I'm the next head coach somewhere. And what do? You play it safe.
Yep.
You don't want to make mistakes. You don't want to look foolish. What you want to do is have plausible deniability around an offense that sputters when things aren't going great, to say, well, the reason was we only had one quarterback on the roster for all intent and purposes. We only could do these certain things. We only had this and that. And you play within a narrow channel so that you don't make mistakes and that you play it extremely conservative so that you don't look bad. And it's back to how coaches always behave, why they don't go for it enough on fourth down and everything. He has every incentive to be extremely conservative for his own personal benefit to the detriment of the team. I'm not saying he does that explicitly. It's a natural human tendency to do that implicitly, something you subconsciously do and don't realize, but it's something that a very good head coach should understand and counteract.
And should address.
Any great manager has to understand you've got a principal agent problem there, and you have to separate the two and make sure that guy is doing what's best for your program, not what's personally best for
Well,
him.
and if there's even some inkling of Lebby doing that, Brent Venables needs to call Joe Castiglione and say we need to have a conversation with Jeff and make sure everything is where we need it to be.
Right.
Because you're not planning for Jeff to leave.
Right.
And like you said earlier, you're paying this man millions of dollars.
Right.
Which is why we turn around and we look at the press box and we boo him today.
Right.
It's exactly why we do that.
Yeah.
I don't pay you millions of dollars, or not I. Well, kind of I. It's partly I.
part of it.
So we don't pay him millions of dollars to go and run this BS conservative stuff, like you just said, which is all we have seen all season. We didn't open anything up against Nebraska. Nebraska sucks.
Mm-hmm.
They're bad. And we are a better offense holistically. We're a better team than maybe not Texas. I may even say that. We're a better team than obviously Nebraska. We're better than Kansas State, and we sure as hell are better than TCU in my opinion.
We need a guy in all of these positions who will leave after a few years. It is a very rare thing to have a guy like Brent Venables who sticks around as a coordinator and also is great. If you can find that guy, wonderful. It's a diamond in the rough. What you're usually going to find is a guy who's so good and talented that he does move to the next level, and that's fine. Nick Saban has to reload his staff all the time, and that guy's won 7 national championships and played for several more. It is very possible to have great success and still do that stuff. But what you don't want is a guy who's going to be conservative to the sake for his own benefit and to the detriment of your team. What you want is somebody who understands the balance between taking the right chances and doing what's best for the team, both in terms of risk reward as well as his own personal benefit. You want those incentives aligned.
Those have to be conversations also that are happening in these coaches' meetings, as all of these guys who have
And it's also Castiglione's job.
It is.
That is something he needs
to
be
monitor
looking
it and be an administrator of it.
And if Brent's too close to the problem, it's Joe's duty to come in and say, look, here's something I see, here's something we need to talk about.
Make sure you're seeing it as well, because
Right.
it's not working.
I mean, we all wanted Heupel gone, and he's taken Tennessee and completely turned them around. Which
Well,
is
we
very
said we said
surprising.
the same thing today. Can you imagine, especially after what Heupel did today, the way Heupel feels, and even Lincoln when he goes and looks at a scoreline after beating Washington State tonight and comes back and looks at the rest of the scores, how they just kind of it's a smirk.
Oh,
at
he
that
was.
point.
I guarantee you, Lincoln was laughing before they suited up to play tonight. Heupel as well.
And I will say, which is something when we had this conversation earlier today, I've always been of two minds with Heupel. I did think that he deserved to go, but I always feared that he was getting a bum deal. And I thought that he was somebody who probably, by victim of circumstance or whatever, could have excelled and done better. And I've been vindicated there too, to a degree, because he's having a lot of success. Now, he may not be the best. We may be better off and look back in 10 years and say, man, it sure worked out in the mix great. In the balance of it all, we had 10 tremendous years with Brent Venables. The same way I could say, if history has to play out a certain way, I'll take 3 years of John Blake and 1 year of Howard Schnellenberger and a couple out of 5 bad years with Gibbs to get Bob Stoops. But none of that is clear, and you don't get to make those decisions from the forefront.
And
I do think that Heupel is probably underrated in terms of what we look at his OU record versus what he's truly capable
Well, the
of.
college climate nowadays is so different as well, where you have to account for so many different things that you didn't have to account for back then, with the transfer portal, with NIL, and everything else.
And Heupel's adapting to that pretty damn well.
He is, and you have to have all of the uncertainties that it seems like we have. We're at a much bigger risk than what we were when Heupel left.
Oh,
and
yeah.
could have worked out, or
Yeah.
even back when Blake and Schellenberg and all that stuff. You run a much larger risk of being I hate saying it, of being Nebraska. So, Doom Pod.
This is a doom pod. It's not a drunk pod, but it's a drinking and cigar
I'm
smoking
pissed,
and
dude.
piss pod.
Today sucked.
We're mad.
The last 3 weeks have really, really sucked, and it's only gotten worse.
Well, it must be the Texas
and we play
effect.
Kansas next week, and we might lose.
I will feel worse about today than if we lose to Kansas, plus we lost to TCU, plus we lost to Kansas State. Add those 3 losses, including the potential one to Kansas, together, they don't equal how I feel about today. Because it's Texas, and it's everything. It's epic about the program. It's like I said, the quote, I probably get the quote a little bit wrong, but it's everything in our entire university is predicated on one question: will it help us beat Texas? That is, I can't remember if it was Barry Switzer or who was it that said it, but it's a very good point, and it's something that needs to be thought of appropriately, because it's a little tongue-in-cheek, obviously, but it is something that's real important. It is a barometer for how good you are as a program. Can you beat your rival, your true rival, the team that has always had your best and given you your best, and historically has been better than us, historically has been on top of us, if you count everything back in 1920 and 1930.
Yeah. Not since World War II, though.
Not since World War II. Anything else for the Doom Pod? Any other thoughts, Ava?
There is a suicide
No.
hotline for those of you who are listening. I do recommend using it if you have
Please seek
have
help.
those thoughts.
Using suicide or using...
No, the hotline.
Oh, the hotline. Okay, yeah.
Well, so certain. No, today was really not great. It hurt. I said pain a lot today, and I still feel a lot of pain. I'm with you, Steve. I want to go and enjoy my fall starting tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go look at the green trees of Oklahoma and hope that they change at some point. Think about them changing.
Let's just go to Beaver Lake.
Yeah, let's get to the bye week.
Let's get to the bye week,
let's beat
folks.
Kansas next week. Let's get to the bye, because it's tested me, and you guys had to go through the 90s, and I've texted a few people. It's time for me to pay my dues.
I hope not. Oh, my
No.
God,
Don't
I
say
hope
that.
not.
Don't say that.
There
No.
were such dark times.
Well, guys, I am turning into Lucas. And
That's where this has gotten
realist?
to. It's turned us into...
We have to change the pod name to One Homer and Two Realists.
oh, man, maybe an upside down day, yeah.
a pessimist, a catastrophist.
And Ava.
You're making Lucas look like some optimistic Homer. No, or they're making you look like that. No, I support the team. I support the program. I definitely support the players. I want the best for them. I obviously want the best for this program, and that's why this is. It hurts because we care. It hurts because we love it. If I didn't care, we wouldn't be doing this podcast. We wouldn't be talking about this stuff. The frustration and everything is because we care and love it.
I'd much rather go back to the days of being disappointed at 9-0 with the way we've played than what we've experienced the last 3 weeks.
Well, yeah, I'd take that trade.
Yeah.
I'd take that trade.
Ugh.
Oh man. Well, we're gonna try to get our composure, get a good midweek pod out, look for the future. It's gonna be an even longer marathon. It's gonna be one of those ultimate.
It's a triathlon.
It's more than a triathlon. It's one of those Ironman competitions where they run through the desert for 100 miles.
I'm going to tell you what, the liquor stores in Norman are going to get some good business
The
this year.
business is going up
It
for
is
those
going
guys.
up.
Hopefully, if you're a new listener, go back and listen to some of our other pods and tell us what you think.
Take a listen.
We're happy to have you, even despite the horrible circumstances that started today. It started 2 weeks ago.
I'm not usually this sour, guys, but
It is 2 homers and a realist.
and I am
And
one.
this is a homer take right
yes,
now.
it is, so
This homer's hurting, baby.
Yep.
He's hurting. Well, keep up alive. Things will get better. They always do because it's Sooner football.
we're not Nebraska.
Sooner magic is going to kick in. It's just not going to be the way people want it to be. It's going to be a long, difficult process. Until next time, Boomer.
Sooner.